it's just so special for such our club, mate, our club.
Lastly, after 57 years of pain, it's coming home.
Hey there, TJ here, and welcome to Yeahthedees, where I'm going through our round 6 win against the Fremantle Dockers in the AFLW competition at Fremantle Community Bank Oval on Sunday the 2nd of October. A nice 30-point win. Margin pretty much all came in the last quarter. So, great game. Very competitive throughout the match. Commentators were saying throughout, Freo were going to run over us, and instead we ran over them. So it was very, very satisfying to watch. It's a very competitive first quarter. We ended up even at the end of 15 minutes of play. Very good start with the first goal coming through Taylor Harris, but Fremantle responded practically immediately with a really nice snap inside 50. Taylor Harris took an awesome intercept mark that's been nominated for Mark of the Year. I retweeted it on my Twitter if you'd like to see it. She basically just sat on this chick's head and it was really amusing. We had a few opportunities forward after Fremantle had quite a few repeat inside 50s early on in the quarter. They really didn't get reward for effort early on, and the D's defence was able to reflect and take the ball down the other end of the ground. We missed a couple of opportunities as well. Kate Hoare being one of them, kicked a really easy one out on the full, but that'll be the only mistake she makes for the day, which is fantastic. She has a really, really great second half of the game here. Eden Zanker kicked our second goal from the second or third inside 50 after the Kate Hoare opportunity. She took a great mark behind her opponent and was able to just play on and just kick it along the ground. Later on in the quarter, Dockers got a mark inside 50 from a lasso free kick. I'm still undecided on whether I like that rule or not. It's interesting in the game of AFLW. Definitely does keep things moving, and I think it also keeps players sort of trying to keep the ball a little bit away from the boundary line. But will we see it in AFL? I'm not sure, but we'll have to wait and see. Scores end up level at the end of that quarter, 2 goals, 1 apiece. The second quarter kind of continues the same way. We had a few more opportunities. Eden Zanker kicked her second about halfway through the quarter. We got the ball off half back during that, was able to switch and flow down the wing with Bannon and Purcell. The kick inside 50 was almost marked by a Freo player, but Daisy gets it out the back and was able to set up Sabrina Duffy for a goal against her old side, which was quite good. We kicked 3 goals for the quarter. Fremantle were only able to kick 1, so we're up by a game-high 12 points at half-time, and we almost snagged another one at the end there, but Harris marked just a little bit too far out. The third quarter starts really, really well with Kate Hoare kicking her first goal for the game in the first 17 seconds of the quarter. And then the Dockers kind of own the rest of the quarter from there. We don't kick another goal. And the Dockers kick 2. It gave the impression that they were very up and about. The heading from this article was said we held off a plucky Fremantle. And I think that's a bit overs. I think they were okay. I think they were good. They looked all right when they got a couple of goals in a row. There was also some Dockers fan just letting out a wild Xena call, which was coming straight through the TV. I haven't heard that for a while. Unfortunately, weren't able to score after that first 17 seconds, and Fremantle came in with a bit of momentum. They were just 1 goal behind us then. There was a few times throughout the first 3 quarters where we'd get a little bit ahead, and then they'd catch back up and get even, but they'd never get in front. So I felt like we were always a step ahead, even though Freo definitely sort of felt like they had the momentum going into that last quarter. And then we get into this last quarter where Freo, they only end up kicking 3 points for the quarter, and we kick 4 goals, 3. So we basically put the deciding margin on them in that last quarter, minus 1 goal. We really owned the footy. It was similar to our first quarter against St Kilda, where we just had all the runs. So I'm not sure if Fremantle weren't able to just put the pressure on, or we just really got more connection, because we kind of overdid it with our handballs earlier in the game, and then in the last quarter it started to click. This game and last week's game, we've really seen the structure work along the field, and when you can sit there on TV, it's even easier when you're at the ground and you can tell, but when you can sit there and watch a game on TV and see the structure working, you can see that the team's in sync. and moving really, really well. And that's a benefit that we have as a team, of being in its 7th season of AFLW, is that a lot of these players have played together for a long time, or at least more than a couple of years, as opposed to a lot of the newer teams that came in this season. They're just not going to have that team chemistry. They're not going to have that, that vibe and sort of know-how of where people are and things like that. So, like, one of the great thing about the AFL team is that, Gawn, Petrarca and Clayton Oliver have all been playing together for 7 years and playing a lot of time in that midfield. They know what they're going to do. They know what type of people they are. They know where they're going to run. And we're sort of seeing the same thing at AFLW, where these players are really starting to play together a lot now and starting to work together in their structure and in their system and really trust each other. And it's really enjoyable to watch. I'm really enjoying the AFLW season this year and the effort that the D's are putting in. We just continued off from last season, where we had a really good run into the grand final, and then we just got beaten by the Adelaide State side, which was the Crows. So yeah, ended up a pretty good game. Kate Hall with the 3 goals, 2 in the last quarter, 1 in the third. Zanka had 2 early on. Duffy with the 2, with Harris, Pearce and Purcell also getting ones on the board. I know I say this every week, but I really like to see Alyssa Batten in more of a position where she can get more of the ball. As soon as she gets the ball and can start running, no one gets near her. She got a really bad knock to the nose and had to come off. I don't think it was too serious. I don't think it was broken or anything, but definitely gave her a nosebleed at some point throughout the game. Madison Gay was phenomenal in defence and a big reason why Fremantle found it really, really difficult to score. Sinead Goldrick had some really interesting moments where she went to play on as soon as she marked it and was caught, and the umpire just told her to just go back behind the mark. I think she kind of played on from ahead of where the mark was, and that's why the umpire did that, but she got lucky a lot of times. Taylor Hanks was an absolute beast in the middle. I think she was really unlucky not to be in the AFLW Team of the Week, where Madison Gay and Kate Hall were able to get into that. Liv Purcell, another great game, 26 touches. Karen Paxman was doing Karen Paxman things again. Lily Mithen also getting her hands on the ball a lot. These are all people in the side that been around a while and are leading by example here. If you look at the team stats, we really owned them in disposals because of this great handball discrepancy. Sometimes we did overuse it, and that's when we did end up turning it over. But handballs and trying to get out to the outside is a very Melbourne thing to do. The AFLW team, the KZ Demons team, they're both copying what we're trying to do at the top level in the AFL. So because it's a system that works a lot, it's a system that works off chaos, and you've got to work off chaos in the AFL because it's a chaotic game. Coming up this weekend, we will be playing the other original AFLW side in the Western Bulldogs down at Casey Fields at 3:10 on Sunday. Should be an absolute cracking game, and I'm excited to give it a watch. So let's get into the most recent trade news, and I'll give you some thoughts on that now. Just move myself over here because it's a bit easier. So the big news so far throughout the trade period, the last three days or so of it, is that Jayden Hunt has decided to join West Coast as a free agent. I thought it was a pretty interesting decision from Jayden. He finally sort of solidified his spot in the best 22. He played most of the games last year before his injury and unfortunately missing out on the premiership, and then played most of the games this year. He played his first 2 finals ever, unfortunately both of them being losses. Then out of nowhere got this offer from West Coast to go and join them. He's said publicly, he said in an interview with a Western Australian radio station that this wasn't on his radar 3 weeks ago. So someone's come and approached him with it. He's considered it and taken it. So Jayden Hunt, look, he likes football, but he's not really a die-hard footy guy. He's going to get paid lots of money to just cruise and play for West Coast. At least that's the way that I read it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see West Coast playing finals in the next 3 years, and he's signed a 3-year deal. We get pick 52 in return, which is just trash. Like, we're not going to use it. We're probably not going to have the spaces on our list to even bother using it, especially since we traded out those other picks to Port Adelaide, which I'll get to in a little bit. But yeah, Hunty, got my Jayden Hunt t-shirt on, which I'll probably won't wear until he retires. Like, he joins West Coast after their worst season ever. I get that they were really COVID stricken in the first 10 games, but the rest of their season was awful as well. They've got a really bad aging list. They don't have a lot of young talent down there. They're just in a really bad spot, and that's because they were all in 2018 when they won the flag. That's just how it is. It's not terrible. They've won a flag and then fell off a cliff. That happens with plenty of sides. But look, I've always enjoyed Jayden. His disposal at high pace has always been not well loved, and this just gives opportunity for a Jake Bowie to come in and really solidify that spot in the back line. He's definitely going to be a player that's going to be playing with us for another 10, 12, 15 years. So why not give him the spot now? After the Jayden Hunt free agency, we traded our pick 33, 43 and 53 over to Port Adelaide for pick 27. I heard Tim Lamb mention that we wouldn't actually be using pick 43 and 53 in this draft anyway. So it looks like we're probably only going to take 2 players from this year's draft with who we've got coming in and going out and changes like that. Kay Chandler's going to get upgraded from the rookie list to the senior list for sure. I was assuming that this pick 27 was going to head over to Collingwood today for Brodie Grundy. It looks like Brodie Grundy is 100% coming over, and I'm pretty excited about that. A lot of people probably don't know how it's going to work, and the only way it's going to work is if we don't play like a traditional football club. Now, what do I mean by not play like a traditional football club? Well, the way that the Hawthorn played a lot throughout their finals run is that they had a ruckman and then they had a full forward backup ruckman like a David Hale, who could come into and pinch hit in the ruck, but was also a big target leading and moving forward. I think what we're going to do is kind of take what Geelong did in the grand final with Stanley and Blizzcabs, and we're going to play these two and sort of split the ground a little bit. So what Geelong did in the grand final was that they had Stanley play as the ruckman and they had Blizzcabs in as a ruck rover, and then as the ball bounced, they split the ground and they pull the ground separately. Because Blizzcabs is then playing on a midfielder, it really confuses the opposition on what they're meant to be doing, and that's what really rattled Sydney early. Besides, probably inexperience and a few other things, and playing, 2 massive games against the Pies and the D's before that. But regardless, I think this will be a really good thing, and I think it will be very unique in the way that we evolve our game style. So if you can imagine, let's say Gawn playing in the ruck and Brodie Grundy starting at centre half forward, there's something that we do with Alex Neil-Bullen. He usually starts in the forward flank, and if we are going forward, Christian Petrarca will then go forward and Alex Neil-Bullen will come up and take his opponent. I'm thinking something similar might happen where the ball will bounce and the ball will go whichever way it goes, but Max Gawn will then take the defensive half of the ground and Brodie Grundy will take the forward half of the ground. And they might swap depending on who's main rucking or not, but I think we'll see a return to Max Gawn playing that floating across in defence and taking big marks role again. That was really, really important for us. It takes a bit of pressure off Jake Lever being the interceptor and allows him to watch his man a bit more when Gawn are taking those marks. I think both people can do it. I think you need 2 players doing that sort of role so you can cover both sides of the ground quite easily. Teams are trying to chop through the middle quickly against us because the only way to score against us is to move quicker than we can respond to. The other great thing that I think will happen from this is that it will double our options of kicking out of defence. So we've seen for a very long time now, for two seasons, Stephen May taking 90% of the kick-outs and kicking directly to the left to Max Gawn. If you now put Brodie Grundy there and Max Gawn on the right side, teams aren't going to know which side of the wing to stack. It means that we can go either way and we've got a really great high marking option. As good as Jackson could be, his overhead marking never really got there. He'd have some games where he would absolutely clunk them, but over his 51 games, it wasn't consistent enough, really. He developed well. He's going to be a generational player. I love Luke Jackson, love what he did for our club. But where Brodie Grundy is now as a footballer, it's win now for us, not develop and hope to win. So it's going to be fantastic, I think, us having him. It's really going to open up our options coming out of defence, because we like to use those big targets to either clunk a mark and then keep moving forward, or get the ball out of bounds to a 50-50 where it's in a better position for us because we back ourselves in the contest. So that's my thoughts on Gawn and Grundy, or Grundy as people are calling it. Max Gawn's a big advocate for bringing him into the club. I think Max really likes having a really good ruckman to keep him on the competitive edge. Like, he wanted Braden Pruce at the club as well, and he was rucking against Luke Jackson in practice matches and things like that, and saying that it was a good challenge for him because, Jacko was a different style of ruckman for him to go after. Imagine how much it's going to keep the competitive juices between Gawn and Grundy when they're up against each other all the time in practice matches. And the other thing is that we're getting a 2-time All-Australian. Like, in my opinion, other than Nick Nat, Gawn and Grundy are the two best ruckmen of the last 10 years. And they've got 8 All-Australians between them. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, 2 with Grundy, 6 with Max Gawn. They're usually super coach locks. A lot of the times I just have Gawn and Grundy as my super coach locks. So, it's interesting. It's funny when some players get injured, their value either goes up or goes down. Like Tom McDonald gets injured. We don't do that well for the back half of the year. His value goes up. Brodie Grundy gets injured, comes out of the side. Collingwood go on this ridiculous run of like winning all these close games. His value goes down. Now they're thinking of pushing him out. So it's really interesting what happens and how the team goes and what happens with injured players and whether their value goes up or down or not. Some of the other trade talk to talk about, James Harms apparently toured Essendon. I really don't care about that. I think, it's like Angus Brayshaw toured Essendon earlier in the year and then 3 days later signed a 6-year deal with us. Let's say you work at a really nice restaurant and Nobu says, hey, you're a good chef. Come have a walk through our facilities. Why wouldn't you go have a look? Whether you're going to commit to going or not. Just because someone goes and has a look at another club and their facilities doesn't mean that they're automatically going to go. Like, I'd go as a sticky beak. I'd go just to check it out. Like, why wouldn't you walk through and see what another club's got? Just to, compare it to what you've got there, or see if there's anything you can bring back and be like, oh, hey, look, at the hangar, they've got one ground's the size of the MCG and one ground's the size of Marvel. That's pretty interesting. Why don't we do the same at Casey? You could say things like that. So, really glad that James Harms is staying. He's got 2 years left on his contract anyway. He tries his guts out for the D's. Also just love that he was a D's supporter growing up as well. Toby Bedford to GWS. Deal hasn't been done yet. I don't know whether it'll get done. It does look very tempting for Toby to head over. GWS seem to be offering a weekly spot and a lot of money. But we've recently offered him a new 3-year deal. I believe we offered him a 2-year deal and it got knocked back. That seems to be what I am understanding. From what I also understand is that he loves Cozzy, he also loves the club, so this is really a 50-50. He's really umming and ahhing about it, and we've already knocked back GWS's first offer, which was like pick 44 or something for him, which is just ridiculous. Yeah, so that's sort of it for trades and things like that. What else is going on in the football world? Interesting trade here between Brisbane and GWS. Brisbane giving away their pick 15 for 21 in a future second round selection. You'd think they would want to have kept pick 15 to get Dunkley over. North get Griffin Logan, Darcy Tucker. Griffin Logue I really rate. Zane Cordy as an unrestricted free agent. Liam Jones signing, I think that's completely irrelevant. I don't think he's that good of a player, so I don't think it makes them even better. I don't think Zane Cordy's that good either. That was a trade pick, so I mentioned earlier. Carlton get a compo. Yeah, big deal. Dan McStay, I think he'll do pretty well at Collingwood. I think that's a great pickup for them. I think Brisbane played way too tall and it just limited the options for them. He played pretty well in that final against Richmond where he had to go into the ruck and really showed what he could do. Blake Acres for a future third round. I think that's pretty cheap considering Blake Acres was probably the third best winger last season, I guess. Tim Taranto for 12 and 19. I think that's overs for him. Like, he's decent. He's a decent player, but, practically 2 first rounders for him is a bit much. They're looking at Hopper. I think you could have thrown in Hopper, put in 19 and maybe another second round, and that would have gotten both of them over. But yeah, Bobby Hill for pick 43 is really cheap as well. I think Bobby Hill should have been probably a second round pick. I think he's going to do pretty well for Collingwood, having him in the opposite pocket to Ginnivan. And then, Carl Amon has signed on as a free agent to Port Adelaide. So it's, 5:30 on Wednesday. And that's all the trades that have gone through. I will do my video next week on Wednesday as well, because that's the last day of the trade period. So I'd hopefully have all of the trades through before I go and do my videos. Quickly, I'll just touch on my thoughts on the stuff happening at Essendon. And isn't AFL just the greatest reality TV show of all time? It's just absolutely ridiculous. Some of the things that go through there, whilst I obviously understand that it was a conflict of interest for him to be holding a position at City of the Hill Church and be on the board with a church that has those views. I think that's a conflict of interest. I think it was a good thing that Essendon said, hey, and then we've now said that this is conflict of interest and we've given you the opportunity to choose. You can either choose to be on the board of your church or you can choose to be the CEO of this football club. And he chose to stay with the church. And that's probably a good choice, because he shouldn't have got the job in the first place because of what he did at NAB. He was the CEO of a bank that robbed people of $160 million, and most of them were dead people. He was in charge of the business that did that and was removed from that position after a royal commission. And that's, the dude's corrupt, in my opinion. And that's just my opinion. I don't think he's a good bloke. I think he's a dodgy dude. I think he's a person that does a lot of spinning, and he got caught. He got caught out doing wrong things for NAB and robbing people, basically. And people like that don't deserve to be in positions of power. You've been caught out by a royal commission. Your religion in this matter is redundant, in my opinion. How the hell can you go in and run a football club or run a business when you're a thief, when you've been proven to fraud people? But congratulations to the Essendon supporters, as much as I don't like them, for telling their club, hey, this isn't good enough. There's an amazing article in the Financial Review. If you don't want to pay for it to read it, the author did a great interview on SEN today with Kane Corns, going over all of Andrew Thornburn's misdemeanours throughout his time at NAB. He wants to go out and say that he's a great leader, he's a great leader of people, but when it comes down to it, he's a thief. And that's the truth of the matter. So anyway, thank you very much for listening to Yeahthedees. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I will see you next week, Wednesday, for an AFLW and trade wrap-up.
And it's just so special for such our club, mate, our club.
Lastly, after 57 years of pain, it's coming home.